Hi, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about my February reads. I ended up reading 9 books, DNFing 3, and I have never ever DNF'd that many books in a month. I actually don't DNF a lot of books ever, so this was a weird month for me. And I think the reason for that, one is my TBR board game chose, I think it was like, wasn't it 4 wrapped books or 3 wrapped? I don't even remember. I don't even know what's going on anymore. But, and you know, my wrapped books are ones that I've been putting off for whatever reason. Usually it's ones that I don't know that I'm going to like, or I don't think I'm going to like, or whatever. So it's no surprise that a couple of them were DNFs. And they don't count against me. Those 2 don't count against me because I'm not ever going to go back to them. They're ones that I know I'm not going to like, and I gave it my best shot. And I'm just not ever going to go back to them. They're no longer on my TBR, so mission accomplished. Whatever. So I'm going to talk about them. I'll let you know why I DNF'd them, and we'll move on. Another thing, if you hear noise, I apologize. I still live in an apartment. There's construction. My neighbors are loud today. It's one of those days. If I keep waiting for a good time to film, it's just not going to happen. So it is what it is. I'm working with what I have here. Also, at the end of this video, I will update you on my upcoming move. We did find a house. I'll tell you about it, let you know what to expect in the upcoming weeks. But let's get into the books. First ones I want to talk about are the books that I read for the I Love Black Horror Readathon, which is hosted by Kel Sweetie. I read a few really great books for this readathon. I had a great time. I was introduced to a couple of new to me authors, and just had a really good time with this. And I will definitely be partaking in this again next year. So I really, really had a good time with it. First book I want to talk about is White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. I have read a book by this author before. I read The Weight of Blood. I believe it was last year. Loved it, gave it 5 stars. So I knew I wanted to read another one by her. This is another YA. And this one it definitely read more YA than the other one that I read. The characters were definitely, they read younger. The main character is Marigold. I believe she was like 15, 16. And she's had kind of a bit of a rough patch. She definitely had a hard time in her last high school, and she got into a little bit of trouble. Well, she and her little brother, their mom, their fairly new stepdad, and their stepsister have moved into this new house because their mom has taken on a new job, and her new job has put them up into this house. So the house is free. It comes with the job, which is pretty cool. But the house is kind of creepy. Doors opening and closing, and there's a weird smell. Some things will disappear. There are shadows, and all these things. Typical haunted house stuff. Well, on top of that, there's some other things going on with the family because it's a new blended family. And Piper, who is the new step sibling, the stepsister, is younger, and she's kind of bratty, but kind of typical of her age, though, if you think about it. And she kind of has a lot going on too, but because it's a brand new situation. But there's also the town itself is really creepy too. The town itself is weird, and it's kind of mysterious, and the neighbors they're very standoffish, and they're really odd too. The whole scenario is very odd. So there's something going on here. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I really enjoyed it. There was some focus on the haunted house, and there were some spooky aspects of it. It wasn't overly spooky, and it wasn't, the focus wasn't so much on the haunted house and on the creepy town, even though there was some of that. To me, the focus was more on this blended family and the whole dynamic there, and on what they were all going through. Of course, like I said, it touches on blended family. It touches on racism, gentrification, PTSD, addiction, and it also touches on anxiety. If you look at the reviews, a lot of people get really annoyed with Marigold or Mari because she's very self-centered and she has this constant need for weed. She talks about how much she wants weed throughout the whole book, or how much she needs it or whatever. But if you think about it, this is a YA book, and she's, like I said, 15 or 16, and she has PTSD and anxiety. If you think about those things, her self-centered, her being self-centered and her being the way she is understandable. Like, if you think about who she is and what she's going through and what she's been through and what she's dealing with, it makes perfect sense for her character. Like, that to me, it didn't bother me so much, because to me that was just her character. That's just, it makes sense for who she is and what she's dealing with. And that's just me, like, just having that understanding of her. I wasn't really that annoyed with her. I'm like, I get you, like, I understand. Now, this is, like I said, it's a YA, but having read this as an adult, I feel like had its benefits, because I could relate to both sides. I was a child of divorce, so I understood the kids' sides of things. I understood what they were going through. I understood their feelings, but I also understood the adult side of things too, because, you know, I've had to try to navigate the blended family and try to make everything work and try to keep everybody happy and try to get everybody to get along, and not knowing how to handle that side of things. I've had to handle both sides of those situations, and so I had sympathy for both sides. And not necessarily always having the right answers, and not necessarily always knowing how to handle it, and just being in those situations where you can never make everybody happy. So I understood both sides. So it was kind of cool reading as an adult and just understanding it from all the different angles. I thought all the characters were really well developed, and I thought they all had their own unique voices. I appreciated that. I always notice that in books, if they all have their own unique voices, and I definitely notice when they don't, but these all did. What I didn't like was that there were definitely some characters that I would have liked to see more of, and there was one character in particular that I felt like just dropped. We never got to see what happened to this person. What was their outcome? Because the way they left it was just like they were just dropped, and I'm like, what happened to them? Can we please find out? Are they okay? Like, what happened? So that I didn't like. Like I said, the focus really wasn't on the spooky elements so much as it was on the family and their dynamics, but I still really enjoyed it. And I still really enjoyed getting to know the characters. It still definitely had me on the edge of my seat a couple times. It still definitely had me like needing to know what was going to happen. But yeah, if you want something that's a little bit spooky, not overly spooky, and not any gore, then you might really enjoy this one. Next up, I read my very first Tananarive Due book, and that was The Between. This was her very first book. This was her debut novel. So I started at the very beginning of her books. I didn't know where to start because there were so many. But I'm like, I'm just going to start at the beginning. So this one was from the 90s. She was writing black horror when there wasn't a lot out there in the black horror genre. And I thought that was really cool. Pretty groundbreaking. And I actually watched an interview of her talking about this, and she was saying that nobody was looking for black horror then. And I just thought that was really cool that she put herself out there like that. And I cannot believe this was a debut novel, because it was so freaking good. So good. This follows Hilton. Hilton was, when he was a boy, his grandmother saved him from drowning. And in the process, she herself died. Basically, she sacrificed herself saving him. And now he is a middle-aged man. He has a wife and kids of his own. And he started to have these really terrible nightmares. And he's kind of dealing with like trying to figure out what is reality and what isn't reality. And he's trying to figure out what happened, what didn't happen. He's trying to figure out, like, am I losing it? And people around him are like, is he losing it? But yeah, he's having these terrible nightmares. On top of it, while that's going on, he's dealing with that. His wife is the only black judge in the county, and she has started to receive these racist, very threatening letters. And they are death threats to her and her family. And so they're dealing with this on top of Hilton dealing with all these things. He's a good man. He's a family man, and he's, like I said, dealing with these nightmares, and he's trying to separate, what's real and what's not real, and all these things. And yeah, so it says, as he battles both the psychotic stalking of his family and the unseen enemy that haunts his sleep, Hilton's sense of reality is slipping away. This was so good. It was a slow burn, but I loved that about this book. I loved that it was a slow build situation. I loved that it was gripping. It was so gripping. Tananarive Due, I am absolutely hooked with her writing. She has a way of weaving a story that had me hanging on to every word. I just could not put this book down. This book is full of very complex and believable characters with very real problems. And, you know, Hilton, the main character, he's sort of slowly unraveling as the story progresses, and, you know, as the lines between dreams and reality slowly start to blur. You as a reader are constantly wondering how much of this is really happening and how much of this is in his head. Speaking of dreams, dream sequences are a big part of this book, and it's something that I normally have a hard time with. Dream sequences are something that I normally don't really care for, but in this case, I thought they were really well done, and they were some of the scariest parts of this book. You know, obviously this book does have some supernatural elements, but it also deals with some very real topics as well, such as obviously racism, the AIDS epidemic of the 90s, homophobia, mental health, marriage and family problems, and grief. It all came together very well, and it made perfect sense. I would recommend this to anyone who enjoys supernatural horror and if you like a slow burn. Then I read The Spite House by Johnny Compton. I've already told you what this one was about in my TBR video. If you didn't see my TBR video, I'll link it down below. I'm not going to get into what it was about again because I've already told you. This had fall vibes. It's based in Texas, so you have the Texas fall vibe. So it's not like fall as in like the cool fall, but like Texas fall. And it does say that in there, that it's like Texas fall. But the things that I liked about this were that it does have complex characters, and I did like the characters. And I liked that it was layered, there were plenty of twists, and the house was really interesting, so I liked all those things. What I didn't like about it was that there were way too many points of view to keep up with. There were a lot of even side character points of view, and I'm like, I don't know that we really need that. That's just unnecessary. So I think if it had been a lot less points of view, it would have been a lot easier to keep up with, and I would have liked it more. And then also, because there was just a lot going on here, and because the focus was on so many different things that it would just scratch the surface on a few things and not really settle all of it. I still had a lot of questions by the end of it because there was just too much going on and there wasn't enough space to fully get to the bottom of all of it, if that makes sense. So I think if the focus had been narrowed down a bit, it would have been better. I had a couple other issues, but I can't say those because of spoilers, but there was a couple of things that just totally didn't make sense at all, and I'm like, that wouldn't work. It just, I don't get it. It wouldn't make sense. But it was a very unique take on the haunted house story, very unique take, and I appreciated that, and I appreciated the effort. Would I read another book by Johnny Compton? Yes, I would definitely give him another try. But this particular one, it didn't exactly work. I ended up giving this one 2 stars. Last book I read for the I Love Black Horror Readathon was Ring Shout by P. Djèlí Clark. Okay, this one was awesome. I can't possibly pick a favorite for the readathon because they were all, I really enjoyed at least the 3. But yeah, this was so fun. It's weird to say it's fun because of the subject matter, but it was, yes, it was a touchy subject, but it was also like there were some fun parts too, if that makes sense, just because of the characters. I'm gonna read you the synopsis on this one. It says, in America, demons wear white hoods. In 1915, the birth of a nation cast a spell across America, swelling the Klan's ranks and drinking deep from the darkest thoughts of white folk. All across the nation they ride, spreading fear and violence among the vulnerable. They plan to bring hell to earth, but even Ku Kluxes can die. Standing in their way is Maurice Boudreaux and her fellow resistance fighters, a foul-mouthed sharpshooter and a Harlem hellfighter, armed with blade, bullet, and bomb. They hunt their hunters and send the Klan's demons straight to hell. But something awful's brewing in Macon, and the war on hell is about to heat up. Can Maurice stop the Klan before it ends the world? This is a novella, but let me tell you, it packs a punch. It is full of rage and vengeance, and I freaking loved it. I really did. It follows Maurice, and Maurice is joined by her friends Sadie and Chef, and these ladies all have their strengths. They all have their different strengths, and together they are a force. And they're fighting off these monsters called the Ku Kluxes, and these Ku Kluxes have infiltrated the KKK, which, you know, are already monsters in and of themselves, but then now they're literal monsters. I freaking love some strong female leads, and yeah, these ladies were definitely strong, and their friendship was very special as well. The whole time you're getting Maurice's point of view, and you definitely feel her anger, her trauma, fear, her hurt, grief, and it is heartbreaking at times. Then you have Sadie, who provides a bit of comedic relief, and Sadie is absolutely hilarious. She made me laugh out loud so many times. She's just very witty, and she has all these quips, and she's hysterical. And then there's Chef, and Chef, she has a history like in the war, and she has expertise on explosives, and I just think that is so cool. She's freaking awesome. I loved all three of these women so much. I got so attached to them. I loved them all together, and them just their banter back and forth as they were fighting off these monsters. I did know a lot of the history that was referenced, especially because I've been helping my daughter with her social studies, and she's actually been learning some of this history, but some of it I didn't know. I learned some stuff along the way, and I would actually put the book down and I would like search some stuff as I was learning it, and I'm like, oh, I need to learn more about that. So that was really cool. There was some stuff that just they don't teach, and I hadn't learned about. I thought the true history and the fantasy and horror were all blended perfectly, and I also thought it was really clever making the hooded white people actually literal monsters. The whole plot and the characters were just very well done. Any book that can make me feel this strongly is one I would highly recommend. I freaking loved it. It was a very high 4 stars. I would have given it 5 stars. It's just I just wanted it to be longer. Like I feel like it could be longer. This is one that I feel like could have been like a whole novel. It was really good. Next, we'll go over the rest of the books. Those were all for the readathon. Let's talk about my DNFs real quick. First of all, there was one that was a soft DNF, which means I will possibly go back to it. We'll see. The first one, The Divine Flesh by Drew Huff. This one was sent to me by the author. It is out now. I was really trying to review this before the release date. I'm going to read you the synopsis on this one. Jennifer Plummer and the Divine Flesh have exactly 3 things. In 1, they're trapped inside Jennifer's body. 2, they despise each other. And 3, they're in love with Daryl Plummer, Jennifer's ex-husband. But when Jennifer takes an experimental wonder drug to free herself from the Divine Flesh's control, it only makes things worse. Expelled from Jennifer's body, the Divine Flesh can now love everyone in existence to death, which in this case means being assimilated forever into the beast. With time running out, it's somehow up to Jennifer and Daryl to save the universe from complete and total destruction. Can a dysfunctional drug mule and an electrician from rural Idaho stop the cosmic abomination before it's too late? Jennifer thinks maybe. First of all, the cover of this, freaking awesome. This is one that I say soft enough because I'm going to try to read it again. This very cool concept. It's well written, and the characters are very interesting. I was into it, but there was just so much going on. It's very fast paced. There's a lot going on, a lot to keep up with. And I don't think this is a book problem. I think this is a me problem, because my brain it was just it's so frazzled right now. I have so much going on. I'm moving, and like I have appointments all over the place. My kids, like they both have all these appointments, and then they have homework every night and all this stuff. And so I think it was a lot for me to focus on right now. And I don't think this is something that is going to be for everybody, honestly. It's one of those that it might not be for everybody anyways, but I do think I will enjoy it once I can sit down and really focus on it. It's just right now it was a lot, but I will try it again. The other one that I attempted, this was one that my TBR board game chose for me. This is a DNF. I will not be going back to it. The Cycle by John Wayne Comunale. Honestly, it's not well written, and it's not well written at all, and life's just too short, and I had too many other books to get to, so it's not one that I'm gonna enjoy. I already know I'm not gonna enjoy it, and I was looking at reviews to see if it was gonna get better, and a lot of people said it was predictable and all that, so I just DNF'd it. And then the other one is Bezill by John, is it Symonds or Symonds? Bezill. This is another one, DNF. I actually got about halfway through with this, and I kept waiting for something interesting to happen, and it wasn't getting interesting. Nothing was happening. So I'm like, it's not a very long book, but like I said, I have things to do, and I have too many other books to get to, and life's too short to waste, and nothing was happening. It wasn't interesting. It really didn't have a whole lot of Gothic vibes, a little bit Gothic vibes. I guess the house is kind of Gothic, or the tower. Bezill is, because it's Bezill Tower. But, yeah, I guess the characters are somewhat interesting, but nothing really has happened. The kid that he's tutoring is really the only normal one in the house. Everybody else is really weird. And the guy that is tutoring him, it's from his POV, and he's just making these interesting observations, but he's just saying the same things like a lot of times over and over. Like he kept saying something about she's as cold as an ice lolly. He said that so many times. I don't know why. That is your only observation about this woman? Seriously? He's in love with her, but he doesn't even know this woman. He just met her. It is so weird. And he keeps saying she's as cold as an ice lolly, but he's in love with her. I don't know. Very odd. And it's just a really weird book, but I love weird books, but nothing is freaking happening, and I was bored to tears with this book, so I just DNF'd it. And I've already told you what those were about. It was in my video, like I said, my TBR video. I read Frankenstein in Baghdad. This is by Ahmed Saadawi, and yeah, this is a Frankenstein retelling. I told you guys what this was about in the video. I'm not gonna go into it again, but yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And you know, I've read a lot of Frankenstein retellings. I can tell when the author has understood the original Frankenstein and when they haven't. Yeah, so this author definitely did understand. And it was really well done. I really enjoyed it. I think he really did a good job of capturing the grief and the horror and the wreckage, all the sadness and all the loss from the war in Baghdad. He captured that perfectly, but then he also captured perfectly the original Frankenstein as well. It's full of death and vengeance and revenge, loss, grief, religion. It's all there, all of it, and it's captured so perfectly. I love his interpretation of it, and it was really beautifully done. I thought if you love Frankenstein, I think this is a retelling that you would actually really enjoy. It's just a really interesting take and a really unique take on it. I freaking loved it. I ended up giving this one a 4 stars. That's all I'm gonna say about this one. I don't want to give any spoilers. I did have other thoughts, but I'm being careful of spoilers. But yeah, I really loved this. I'm not gonna give a lot of thoughts on this one. I did a vlog on blind dates with horror books. I will link it down below. I gave all my thoughts on this one and that. I just really love this one. Gave it 4 stars. This is a novella, fast-paced. This is like rich people drama meets horror, where some bad people are getting exactly what they deserve. So it's really good. The kills are epic. They're amazing. It's also very lush and opulent and very pink, and I freaking loved it. This is another one, Getaway by Zoje Stage. This was a 2-star read. Didn't really care for it. It was just okay. This is another one that I read for the Blind Dates with Horror Books vlog, and so I'm not going to get too far into it. I'm not going to really say too much about it. These girls that go out on like a hiking / camping adventure, they end up kind of being stalked, and these girls are also dealing with the past. My biggest issue with this was the ending. Didn't really work for me at all, and had a lot of issues with it. Can't really say. I had a lot of issues with the girls, like they're freaking back and forth bitching at each other, and they're like bringing up the past when they're in a life or death situation. Really, do you have time for that shit now? You literally may die. Now is not the time. And then you know, some things at the end that really didn't, I don't really think that's how that would have gone down. And yeah, I just had a lot of problems with it, but and they made some really stupid decisions through the whole thing. But yeah, 2 stars. I read Creep by Emma Van Straaten. I told you all what this was about in my TBR video, but I really enjoyed this one. Ended up giving this one 4 stars. Yeah, this was just, I mean, it was fascinating and also unsettling. You're getting Alice's POV the whole time. So you're very much in her head as she's, you know, infatuated with Tom. It's written in the same sort of chaotic ramblingness that would be her random thoughts throughout the day. It's sort of rambly, it's sort of all over the place, because you're in her head. You're in the mind of an unwell person. Her thoughts are they're so vulnerable, they're honest, they're real, and you're getting all of it. I found that to be really effective in getting to know her character and what she's going through. Yes, this book is about obsession and infatuation, but it's also about loneliness and self-loathing and obviously mental health. Is what Alice is doing super creepy? Yes. Is she constantly invading this man's privacy? Also yes. However, I found myself feeling really bad for her. You know, she's obviously unwell and she really just needs some help. Somebody just needs to reach out and say, Alice, you know, let's get you some help. And it's just really sad. It felt like a character study. She isn't meant to be a likable character, but she is very interesting. And I found myself to be absolutely horrified by her actions on many occasions. I literally set up at one point like, what is she about to do? But yeah, she would have all these like typical thoughts, and then out of nowhere this darkness would set in. This darkness would hit out of nowhere, if that makes sense. Like she would just have these mundane thoughts like you and I would normally have. And then all of a sudden this dark thought would just hit. And you're like, oh, where the hell did that come from? It did take me a little bit to get used to the writing style because, like I said, you're in the mind of a woman who is unwell and just sort of rambling. However, once I did get used to it, I was absolutely hooked. And, you know, I had to know what was going to happen next. I had to know how far this was going to go, how far she was going to take it. It was really good. And it was really interesting. So the last book I read was Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. This was a 5-star. I freaking loved this book so much. I've had a really hard time finding a 5-star lately. I don't know what my problem is. I don't know if it's the books. I don't know if it's me. I don't know. But I freaking love this book. It was so beautiful. So, like, deliciously gothic. I don't know. It was so great. If you're a mood reader, this was really summery. Just so you know. But not that it has to be read in the summer, but just in case you're like a seasonal reader, this is a great summer book. I'm so sorry it took me so long to read this because I am hooked now. I have to see what else she has written because it was great. This is, yes, it is gothic horror, but it's also a love story. And I didn't know that's what I needed. I didn't even know this was a love story, but this is a love story wrapped up in there between Nestor and Nina. And it is so beautiful. I didn't know I needed that. I'm not even a romance person. And it's not like smutty or anything like that, but it is the most beautiful love story. And Nestor and Nina are officially like one of my top favorite horror couples ever. The things they do for their love, the things and the fact that they have loved each other since childhood, and the fact that 9 years went by and Nestor thought Nina was dead. And he completely like took off and dealt with his grief thinking she was dead for 9 years. And he comes back and he finds out that she's alive. And he loved her that whole time. And she thought he abandoned her. Like she just thought he up and left. And she had no idea that he thought she was dead the whole time. Oh, can you imagine? That's so sad. But anyway, so he's loved her this whole time and he's been grieving her. And the whole time she was alive. That's so crazy. But anyways, I told you all what this was about in my TBR video, so I won't get into it. But yeah, vampires in this were absolutely terrifying. There were vampires through the whole thing. So yes, you get that scary. It is very gothic, very beautiful. So many lines in this that I loved. So well written. So well written. There were so many different elements of this. There were so many different obstacles in this. And layers, and it was written in, the setting is 1846. And another thing that this was cool for me is that I told you that I've been helping my daughter with her history. I've been helping her study, and so I've been learning too because helping her study, I'm learning in the process. I'm relearning stuff that I had forgotten, that I haven't learned about in, you know, years. And yeah, so the history in this is stuff that she's learned recently, so I've learned recently. So it's things that I could remember, and I knew what was going on. And when, you know, the history of this, and I'm like, oh, I remember this. I know exactly what's happening. But yeah, there were so many obstacles that Nestor and Nina were dealing with on top of the vampires, and, you know, in that time. And Nina is so badass. She's just so strong. But yeah, Nina is like, she's kind of in between these, like, she is bound to her family, obviously. She is loyal to her family and her ranch and you know, all these things. She wants to take care of her family, but then she also loves Nestor, so she's dealing with those things. And then she, you know, wants to take care of her family, and the fact that she like wants to go up against these things, like she wants to go up against all these different scary things. And at that time, women just, they weren't really allowed to do that. They weren't really supposed to do these things. And she's like, no, I'm doing it. I'm gonna take care of this. But she's so brave and so strong. And I've told you all, I love a strong female, and she is just badass. But yeah, and then how protective Nestor is, and I love how sweet their love is, and just, I don't know. And I told you, I'm not even a romance person, but I love how I just love them together. I freaking love them together. This does have a lot of commentary on class and, of course, the gender roles in that time, because like I said, it was 1840s, hierarchies, and, you know, but yeah, it's so freaking good. I had no idea this was a love story wrapped up in a gothic horror. I was very surprised by that. I had no freaking idea. I thought this was going to be about vampires, and it is about vampires. Vampires are in there. There are vampires all throughout this book. I had no idea this was a love story until I read it. And to me, like, I think the love story kind of takes it's kind of more the focus, and then the vampires are kind of just mixed in there to me. But I loved that. I kind of enjoyed that. It was a pleasant surprise to me, even though I'm a horror reader. Somehow I needed this, and somehow this is exactly what I needed right now, and I enjoyed it. Just know that if you read this, just know that it's like there's a romance mixed up in here, but it's not like smutty romance. It's like a slow burn kind of romance situation. But I freaking loved it, and I love their love, and I enjoyed the shit out of this. Are they gonna end up together? Are they not gonna end up together? You'll have to read it to find out. But I love how I just love this. I just love this. I love Nestor and Nina. I'm sorry that I rambled so much. That was a lot. I thought I would make it brief. I did not. So, first of all, we did get a house. We got a house. We're moving. March 22nd, we're moving, which is coming up. I've already started packing. Like, basically, I pack everything, and then my husband moves it, because I don't lift anything. Basically, I pack, and whatever boxes I pack stay wherever they are, and then he'll stack them. And then when it comes to moving, he'll move everything. So he does all the heavy lifting. So it's kind of like, yeah, we're a team. I pack, and then he moves it. So I've been packing. So I'm very busy. But yeah, we found a 4-bedroom, which is nothing short of a miracle. It was an accident, kind of. I just got this like thought one day. I was like, wait, there was a lady we viewed a house with a while back before we decided to stay here for 3 more months. And I still have her number. And so I messaged her and said, hey, do you have any 3 or 4 bedrooms? And she happened to have only one, and it was a 4-bedroom. So I went and looked, and it's in the middle of freaking nowhere. And I mean, in the middle, it is out there. And it's in a school district that works perfectly. And it's a school that I've actually went to, one of the many, and I actually enjoyed it. So talked to the kids, they were fine with it. And yeah, it's a 4-bedroom. So I get an office and / library. So that's exciting. It's exciting that my books aren't going to take over our bedroom or our living room or anything, because they have taken over our bedroom right now. So yeah, expect like probably a library tour or whatever whenever I get it set up. I'm probably going to have to get more bookshelves because my books are overflowing right now. So I'm probably going to get like at least 1 more shelf, if not more, because I have built-ins in the living room, and I have books there. I have some in storage that I can't put out. I have some in my closet. Anyway, so expect like possibly a bookshelf tour soon. Okay, next week I'm gonna do 2 videos. One is a book tag. I have been limiting them lately, just because like I put a lot of effort into them and they tank. I really do enjoy doing them, but I just limit it. I limit them. Anyways, I'm doing a book tag video next week on Tuesday. Next Friday, I'm gonna do some book recommendations. I'm gonna tell you about some spring horror books that feel like a creepy fairy tale. That'll be fun. I've got a couple spring videos for you in the next couple weeks. Try to do some more seasonal stuff like that for you, some seasonal horror. Been working really hard on that one. I will see you next Tuesday for the book tag. Bye for now.